Hello everybody, it's Pastor Kurt and I'm so glad that you have tuned in to join us today for Restoration Church Online. We're starting a brand new conversation as we jump into the month of November, looking at this idea of how do we grow gratitude and what does it look like to actually have a sense of gratitude in our life. And so I want to start by just asking you a question. If there was a secret to being happy in any situation, would you want to know what it is? Can I tell you that secret? In Philippians 4:12, the Apostle Paul writes, I've learned the secret to being content in every and any situation. Now, I don't know about you, I'm sure his first century readers read that and thought, really? Because they knew Paul's life. They knew that he had been poor, he had been wealthy, he had been persecuted, and he had been a leader. He had been revered in society, and he had also been thought so lowly of that he was put in prison. And the thing is, for all of us, as we engage in this conversation around happiness and contentment and gratitude, the reality is that we often look to all those external things to give us that happiness or to give us a reason to express gratitude. If I only had more money, I would be thankful. If I only had a better job, I would be more thankful. If I only had a different relationship, my life would be better and I would be more thankful. If only my kids would just sit down and be still for just 1 minute, I could be grateful, right? But like I said, in Philippians 4:12 and 13, Paul explains his life and gives us this secret. He says, I know what it's like to be in need. I know what it's like to have plenty. And I have learned the secret to being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, he says, right? Whether living in plenty or living in want. And here's the secret. He knows that all the things that he has, all the things that he can look to in his life, whether good or bad, come through this relationship that he has with God. He says, I can do all things through him who gives me strength. I can go through a season of want, I can go through a season of plenty, and I can do anything because God is with me. But notice the language that he uses. This is not, accidental. He says, I have learned the secret. See, the reality is that gratitude isn't discovered or earned. Gratitude is learned, right? Gratitude is a skill. And the Apostle Paul is speaking to us, and what we're going to look at throughout this series is how do we develop the skill of gratitude? How do we grow it? How do we, build it up in our life? Because we all know this. Gratitude improves every relationship that you're in. It includes your relationship with your family, at work, with your children, with your friends. Gratitude can improve all those relationships, and gratitude can even improve your relationship with God. Because here's the thing. Gratitude determines how much of you are willing to continue to entrust to someone else. And this is the thing. Gratitude is determinative. Now, that's not a word we use often, but gratitude determines how much of you, like I said, you're willing to give to someone else and how much of them you're expecting in return. It really is the building blocks of our relationships, right? If someone's grateful, I'm willing to give even more next time. If someone doesn't express gratitude, maybe next time I'll give a little less. Right? I'm sure you're the same way, right? And yet there is this disconnect because we can so easily go along and think everything's great when actually they're not in a relationship because we forgot to express gratitude. And there's this subtle undercurrent that nobody ever really says, but everybody kind of feels that there's this rift, there's this tension in our relationship. And it really is because there was a lack of gratitude. Right? And so gratitude is a really big deal. So that's why we're spending the next 4 weeks looking at it. And we're going to look at how it plays a part in a lot of different aspects of our life and a lot of different aspects of our relationships. So let me ask you another question. Have you ever felt unappreciated? Like in this season that we're in, I'm sure all of us don't have to think back much longer than a week ago, right? To feel a moment that we are like, man, I just didn't feel appreciated. Whether it's for the extra effort you put in, whether the things you've learned and the stress that's going on in your life in the midst of the pandemic, still working from home with your kids on Zoom, virtual learning, right? Figuring out new technology, re-engaging in a new way in your company, right? Your stress in your marriage or in your relationship with your partner is at an elevated level. We're all feeling these things, right? And so we can all think of a time when we feel that, man, I was not given the gratitude that I desired, that I wanted. There was not that exchange, right? And when we don't experience that, what happens is that we actually begin to feel a little bit entitled, right? We think, hey, there's something that I deserve. There's something that I expected, and perhaps even understandably so, right? You expect that someone would come back and treat you with the same level of care and service that you offer to them. And they would at least say thank you. And when it doesn't come back your way, right, it just hurts. Like, it stings. It feels almost a little bit like they didn't appreciate or care about you, not just the thing that you did. And see, this is the problem, right, with gratitude, is that ingratitude can be the behavior that we exhibit or someone else might exhibit. It's the lack of behavior, right? But when it stings, and we've been on both sides of this, right, it's an interesting thing because it pulls our relationships apart. And the thing about it is that the recipient of the lack of gratitude, the one that's waiting to be thanked, they always know that something's wrong, right? They always know when someone was ungrateful or didn't express what they thought was going to happen. But if you're in a relationship and you're the one that needed to give gratitude and you didn't, it's a mystery to you, right? You're unaware, perhaps, right? And this is what's so challenging, is that we can often be ungrateful without even realizing it. And so that's why it's so important. That's why the Bible speaks to it in so many different ways. And so we're going to look at it over these next 4 weeks, because I hope that as a community, we would actually practice and invest the work and invest the time to get really, really good at gratitude. Because it's so much more than being like, oh, they don't appreciate me for all that I do. Like, gratitude is a characteristic where we really express that we understand how valuable another person is. And that is what is at play here. So it really plays into how we see God and other people, and that's so important, right? All right, so think back to when you were 13 or 10 or wherever it was that you actually went out like trick-or-treating on your own. Remember that? We just celebrated Halloween, and this year was awful. But back in a normal time, right? When you got to go for your first time as a kid and go trick-or-treating on your own, your parents or your guardians weren't watching you. But I remember the first time that we did that, and I was about 10 or 12 years old, and we went out, and usually when we would go, right, we would go and trick-or-treat and get the candy, open your pillowcase, whatever. And before we could even really turn around and start walking away from the front door, my parents or my friend's parent, whoever we were with, would usually say, "What do you say?" And we all knew the answer, right? You probably know it right now. What do you say? You can put it in the comments. Like, we say thank you, even though it's like, they gave me Smarties. What am I going to thank them for, right? And so I remember I was with my friends for the very first time, and we're trick-or-treating alone. And instead of saying thank you, literally my friend opened it and they got like Starburst or something, which if you love Starburst, you're not like this part of the story. And he literally looks up through his mask at this lady at our neighbor's house at the front door that had just given us free candy simply for dressing up, right? Like, it's a good deal for us as children on Halloween. And he looks down in his pillowcase, he's frustrated with the Starburst, and he says, "You got any Reese's?" Now, I felt the same way, but I didn't think to say that out loud. My friend just said it, right? And so this is what happens, and we have this moment where you hear that story and you cringe because we know what it's like to be in that moment. We're like, man, that kid is so ungrateful. I don't want to be that kid, right? None of us want to be that kind of person that is known for being ungrateful. And so today we're going to look at a story in the scriptures where some people engaged with Jesus and had a very similar experience. So if you have a copy of the Bible, you can open to the book of Luke, right? It's about 2/3 the way through. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are the 4 accounts of Jesus' life. And Luke was a researcher, and he is telling the story because he had interviewed and researched all these different kinds of people, and he puts together a chronological narrative of Jesus' life. Right? And so he's talking about this moment in Jesus' ministry where he's walking around with his friends, and he comes across a unique situation where he offers someone something and then has this experience of both gratitude and a tension of ingratitude at the same time come back his way. And so if you have a Bible, you can turn to Luke 17. If not, you can open a new tab and search for it there. We're going to start in verse 11. So Luke 17, starting in verse 11, Luke tells us this story, and I'll kind of walk you through it, right? So Jesus is continuing on the road to Jerusalem with his followers in tow. They're all there with him. And he reached the border between Galilee and Samaria, right? And so Galilee and Samaria are these kind of northern parts of modern day Israel, and they were leaving Jerusalem up through Judah, and they were going to Galilee, which is the northern part, but Samaria is right in the middle. So imagine we're in Judah and San Diego, Galilee is Los Angeles, but they got to go through Orange County to get there, right? And so Samaritans, were not really enjoyed by the people there in Judea. They were kind of seen as outcasts a little bit. And as they're crossing the border, he hears these men screaming out to him, "Jesus, have mercy on us." Now, we learn, as Luke records the story, that these men all had leprosy. And so back then, leprosy was this really, really scary condition that so many people had. But they were often, if you had this skin disease, this leprosy, you were sent out to live on your own outside of town. So use your imagination, right? As they're walking on their way north, they're right in the middle at Samaria, and all of a sudden, there's this interruption as Jesus is teaching. And they're saying, have mercy on us. And good Jewish boys in his clan, right? All of the, first followers of Jesus were mostly Jewish. They knew, one, we don't talk to Samaritans. We're already crossing borders that we're taught not to cross. And now we're engaging with people that we should definitely not touch because they have this contagious disease, right? So not only is there social and religious, ramifications, but there's true, honest health conditions that Jesus is leading them towards. And as they're walking, he turns to these group of men and he tells them, go show yourself to the priests, right? Which back then, the priests were the people that would give folks with leprosy kind of a blessing and a clean bill of health. And they're the ones that would say, hey, you can go back into society, because people with leprosy were not allowed to go into the town. They were not allowed to go to the temple. They were not allowed to do anything with other people. They were on their own version of quarantine, right? Not only are they highly contagious, but they're highly despised, right? This was, leprosy at that point was really a long-term death sentence to die alone out in the wilderness, right? And so as Jesus calls back them and says, go show yourself to the priests, they hope against hope that something would shift, that something would change. And it says that Luke records that all 10 of them started making their way back to Jerusalem to show themselves to the priests at the temple. All right, so there's a lot going on in this story already. And so as they hear Jesus say, go show yourself to the priests, they're walking back and they're like looking at each other. I imagine they're like, when was the last time you were in Jerusalem? I don't know, like 8 years ago. I don't know, my parents are there, but I haven't seen them since I was a kid, right? And so these 10 guys, start the trek and start the journey back to show themselves to the priests, because they are hoping against hope that Jesus may have done something, even though it doesn't feel like it in the moment. They don't feel like anything has happened immediately, right? And imagine if you're the priest and 10 guys kind of crash into your office and they're telling you that they had leprosy, and maybe you recognize some of them, maybe you don't, but you're looking at them and they're like, wow, you can't tell. Like, open wide, say, like, you feel okay? And all of a sudden it's like, wow, these guys must be healed. And Luke writes that as they were going on their way to Jerusalem, they were cleansed. And so we don't know if, again, this was on their way as they were walking, or maybe they had to spend the night somewhere and they woke up the next morning on the way to Jerusalem and they were healed, or maybe they didn't even know they were healed. They couldn't bring themselves to believe it because this is all they've known their whole life, until the priest said, you look fine to me. Right? And so as they realize this incredible news, this incredible miracle had taken place, they start praising God, Luke says. And one of them, it says, made his way back to Jesus. Jesus had continued on through Samaria to the village of Galilee with his followers. And so again, this guy doubles back more than twice the journey to find Jesus, right? To find the person that says, go show yourself to the priest, to find the one that he says, this is how I was healed, right? We have been cleansed, we have been healed, and yet one of them makes the journey back to express his gratitude to Jesus. Now, we've had this moment, right? You've probably had this moment at some point in your life. I know I have, where something happens and something's really great. Something I can't even believe, right? I'm so excited, and I feel grateful. Like in my heart, I'm celebrating, I'm excited. I feel grateful. But if I don't express my gratitude, it really stops with me. And the person that perhaps I want to thank, or the person that because of their sacrifice helped me go further faster, or whatever it might be, they don't get to receive my gratitude because it stays inside. And so this is this moment, right? This is this tension in this story that as we read it, that we've all experienced in our life. And I want to encourage you, it's easy to think about other people that maybe owe you some gratitude, but for just a moment, think about the last time that you actually told someone thank you. Even if it's something that seems insignificant. Right? This one guy makes the journey back to Jesus to tell him thank you for healing me, for giving me a brand new bill of health, right? To have me have a new start on life. And Jesus kind of turns around and I think with a smile on his face, he asks a little facetiously, like, weren't there 10? Like, did I not have enough power? Did the spell not work? Or how, I don't mean. I think he's smiling and laughing, going, where are the other 9? And what he's trying to show, I think, his followers that watch this happen, I think what the question really comes loudly through the scriptures to us in my life and your life right now with this text and what Jesus is trying to communicate to us is that even though this one guy threw himself down and said, thank you, Jesus, thank you so much, that there were 9 others that probably felt grateful, but didn't express it, didn't say thank you. And this is what we mean when we talk about gratitude is something that grows. It's something that we have to build and practice and learn. And it starts in some small, seemingly insignificant ways, and it can grow into much bigger, more massive ways. And we've seen this in our culture over these last few months, that in some ways that kind of stand out for us. Like, how often in 2019 did you thank your mail delivery person? But this year, there's signs all over our communal mailbox in our townhome complex saying thank you to those that deliver the mail because we've never ordered more through the mail. When was the last time you thanked the person checking out your groceries at Ralph's or Vaughn's or Trader Joe's, right? When was the last time that you stopped to talk with the clerk at Sprouts or the person at Target for helping you get the things that you need? In 2019, you probably have never thought about it. But in 2020, you experienced it a lot. And we have learned to express gratitude. And that's one of the most beautiful things that's come out of this hard season in our culture. Right? And if you were to think about your life, right? If you were kind of to look in the rearview mirror of your story, there are people that helped you get to where you are today that perhaps you've never thanked. Some of them might be obvious, some of them might be less obvious, right? But there are people that facilitated our forward progress, that facilitated our success. And there are people that are behind us that are looking forward to what we are doing now, and they helped make it possible. And the guy that went back, the one that was, he realized, I'm going to go back because this guy, this Jesus, allowed me to move forward in my life. I'm going to go back, I'm going to return, and I'm going to express gratitude. I'm going to thank him. And Jesus draws this distinction. And for so many of us, I think this is the distinction that comes into focus for us right now in our life, is who are we willing to say thank you to? Because I'm going to push a little bit. If it's hard for us to express gratitude, if it's hard for you, it's hard for me to say thank you, what that demonstrates, what that exposes in us is an overinflated view of ourselves. So many of us, myself at times, and I'm sure you can relate, we can think that we got here on our own. That it was our hard work, or it was our ingenuity, or it was our smarts, or our hard, studying in school, or whatever it might be that got us here. And I'm a self-made person. And yet, if we're honest, all of us have people that enabled us to get to where we are. And even in the moments when we don't have all the things that we want, or things aren't going the way that we thought they would, we have plenty to be grateful for and to say thank you for. See, it would have been so easy for these lepers, especially even the one that came back, to be like, how come God, made this happen in my life? Because that was what all religious people of his day would have told him, that this is God's, despising you and cursing you with this disease. How could God let this happen? But instead of focusing on that, he pauses a moment and says, there is something to be grateful for, and I want to express that gratitude. Because when gratitude is unexpressed, we know there's something wrong with that picture. We know that something's incomplete. It's open-ended. The loop isn't finished. Right? There's something that isn't fully dialed in and circled up that we need to make it right. And you've experienced that tension, and so have I. And so we can be the kinds of people. Followers of Jesus ought to be the kinds of people, right, that can do something about that knows when there's something else that needs to be done, we can step in and do it. And so perhaps for you, this week, there's a space where you can ask the question, who do I need to look around my life and express gratitude to? Or what do I have in my life, right, that I need to say thank you for? And here's the thing, it's just like that Halloween candy store, right? When left to our own, we see what actually is in us. You got any Reese's, right? But maybe there's a spot in your life with your finances, or with your partner and your family, or with your job or your boss, or with your employee that you wish it was a different way. You wish it was something other than what you're experiencing. But if you were to take a moment and to find something in that relationship, in that circumstance that you can be thankful for, it would actually change you. And I think it would change that circumstance. It would change that person across from you. It would change the person you're trying to, help develop. It would change the person that you are in relationship with. Because here's the thing, just like leprosy, contentment is contagious. That when you've been around someone, that they're just happy with what they have, that they're just thrilled that they get to take another step in life, that they are overly grateful, and you're like, man, you don't have anything. That rubs off on you, doesn't it? That rubs off on me. You ever been to a developing country where you've seen abject poverty that is, absent from our country? What seems to also be present in that exact same space of all of that lack is a sense of joy and a willingness to share and a sense of gratitude for what they have. I remember we experienced this when we were in Africa for the first time, and they were so excited to cook a meal for our group that was there. I'm like thinking in my head, they don't have anything. Why would we impose on them that they would cook us a meal? But for them, it was a part of their culture, and it was something that they had joy to do and to share and to offer that to our group. And to keep that from them would actually be taking away a gift. We think it's material. We think it's getting our way. We think it's getting healed or getting a raise or finding that next great job or marrying the person that you want to marry or getting into the school, the college that you want to go to, or having that upgrade to your kitchen. And those are all good things. But if you are not grateful before you get them, you won't be grateful after. Gratitude isn't earned or discovered. It's learned. It's something that we build. It's a muscle that we can develop. And we realize in those moments that when we don't experience gratitude, when you and I don't experience, and more importantly for this conversation, when you and I don't express gratitude, it's actually experienced as a rejection. Now, whether you are a Jesus person or not, you know this to be true, but the Bible does communicate this and confirm this, is that our hearts are acceptance magnets. We are drawn to where we feel accepted, and we move away from shame and rejection. And so when you have a moment where you do not express gratitude, in a small and subtle way, you are rejecting someone. You are pushing them away, and over a course of time, that can devolve your relationship with that person. And so when there's spaces in your life where you begin to think that person, because they're your employee and you give them a paycheck, or because she's your mom and that's just what moms do, and so I don't need to say thank you, right? When you have those moments and you have the opportunity to express gratitude and you withhold it, it's important to recognize that feels like a rejection to the person on the other side of you. Andy Stanley says it this way, that unexpressed gratitude feels like ingratitude. That when you and I don't say thank you, right, it feels like we're not thankful. No matter what you might feel in your heart, no matter what you might assume about that person or about yourself. It is so easy to have an inflated view of ourselves and think that we can do it on our own, or that, man, I feel grateful for that, whether it's a gift or whether it's a kind word or whether it's just someone being in your life. And so here's the challenge. Here's a little homework I want to give you, because I want to lean into this. Because again, I want us to learn how to do this. And sometimes it starts by just acting your way into a feeling. But this week, I want to encourage you to express gratitude to two different people in your life in the way that they're going to receive it. For some of them, that might be writing them a thank you note, right? To actually do something more than just text and, hey, thanks, bro. Like, actually sit down and write them a handwritten card so that they can have that and they can sense your gratitude. For some of them, it might be, hey, they love quality time, and so you've been putting off having time with your neighbor, and whether that's a socially distanced drink or just talking over the fence with your mask on, whatever it might be, to actually engage with someone that you've kind of been avoiding. That's a way to show gratitude to them. Maybe it's thanking your spouse for the hard work that they do to encourage and to build into your family, rather than to just assume that's their job. Maybe it's with your team and to actually maybe provide lunch for them or to buy some token of appreciation to give to them, not on the company's dime, but on yours, simply to encourage them and let them know, hey, I'm so thankful for all of the ways that you have pivoted and worked hard to get through this crazy season that we've been in together. Because remember, contentment is contagious. And when you express gratitude, that will create more gratitude in your home, in your relationship, on your team, at your workplace, in your neighborhood. And again, when we express gratitude, it's determinative. It grows or it deteriorates our relationships. And so this is what we want to do. This is who we want to be. Figure it out. Find a way. And that will lead to developing a habit. It's going to take some time, right? You might have to deal with some pride of thinking that you can do this on your own, right? And it might have to change some of your attitude. But when we get in the habit of expressing gratitude, it changes the culture around us and it changes us. It will draw our attention to the spaces that God is on the move and at work in our life, and it will move us away from a spot where we envy what other people have. In fact, in Proverbs it says that a heart at peace finds life, but envy rots the bones. And so when we don't express our gratitude, when we don't express the things that we are thankful for, something begins to deteriorate inside of us. But when we do, when we use that muscle, just like any other muscle in our life, it grows, it gets stronger, it becomes more natural. So even if this week it feels like it's a struggle, find a way to thank and express gratitude to two different people in your life in the way that matters most to them. And when you do, I think it will actually grow something in you. So that's it for part one. And I want to encourage you to stick around these next few weeks and join us as we continue this conversation, because gratitude has so many different ways of showing up in our life. And so next week, we're going to talk about what does it look like to actually never have enough. Right? Have you ever had that feeling of there's just never enough? We're going to talk about that specifically next week. Have you ever gotten stuck in a roadblock or a detour and you wonder, how am I supposed to be grateful for this situation? This is really, really difficult. We're going to talk about that in week 3. And then in week 4, we're going to talk about how do you put the most important things, the things that you want to be known for at the end of your life, how do you put them first and make sure that they're happening right now in your life in this season. So it's going to be a great conversation over the next few weeks, and I hope that you'll join us. But we're going to continue in our worship gathering as we do something that we do every week. But really for this week, it's something that's so important because it's a way for us to actually live out this principle and express our gratitude to God. And that's through worship. It's through singing, it's through giving, it's through praying. But when we give back to God, it's simply a way for us to say thank you, to express our gratitude. We're not paying God off or paying him back. We're simply saying, I know that everything I have ultimately comes from you. I worked hard for it, but I got my ability to do that from you. I may have, saved it up, but I know that you are in control and you will provide for me. And so when you decide to express your gratitude to God through your generosity, it's simply like that one leper coming back to Jesus and saying thank you. So I want to challenge you. Maybe you feel grateful to God, but you've never actually expressed it. You've never maybe expressed it this way. And I would encourage you to take the chance, to take a step, and to join us as you would give financially, whatever level you're comfortable to give, to move our mission forward and to be a part of what God is doing here at Restoration Church as a way of expressing your gratitude to him. So there's a couple ways you can give here. We try to make it as simple as possible. You can go to restorationchurchsd.com/give and set up one-time or reoccurring giving. That's how my family and I choose to do it. You can go and grab your cell phone if it's not right by you and text any amount to the number 84321. You'll get a text back. You can follow those text prompts to select Restoration Church as your giving destination. Or you can mail a check here to our building in San Diego. But however it is that you choose to give, most importantly, I want you to know, you're not just giving to this church. You're giving back to God. And you're saying thank you for the ways that you have moved in my life. And when you do that, he grows you. He changes you. And he is developing gratitude within you in a powerful way. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, we have so much to be grateful for. And when we really take a moment to pause, we not only are grateful for other people and other circumstances in the rearview mirror of our life, but ultimately we realize that we have so much to be grateful for to you. We may not have everything that we want, but we all have more than we need. And so thank you for the relationships and the friendships and the investments that have been made in our life. Thank you for the health that so many of us have, and thank you for the families that surround us. Thank you for all of the ways that you are at work in our life and in our city. And I pray that while there are many things that we may still want, or things that we need your help with, or spaces we want you desperately to move in our life for healing or for provision or for direction, may we find something in this moment, in this quiet moment, May we find something to be grateful for. May we express that to you through our worship, through our giving, through our prayer, through our song. And may you receive it as our grateful hearts towards you, Jesus. It's in your name we pray all these things. Amen. Well, thanks for being a part of our experience today at Restoration Church Online.